very basic UV creation. So create polygon primitives, interactive creation off, and choose the cube. Window UV texture editor will give you this window, and window rendering editor's hypershade will give you this window. In the last video I made this really weird texture. I'm just going to kind of put that to the side for right now, and I'm just going to make a new material. It could be called Lambert 3. Doesn't really matter. But what I want to do is assign Lambert 3 to this object. So click on it, right click, assign existing material Lambert 3. You know that the object has Lambert 3 because you can go in here to the properties of the object and you can see Lambert 3 attached to the object. Another way you could do it is you can click on the material, right click, and say select objects with material. The cube gets highlighted. Okay. So the juggling of the UV texture editor window and the hypershade window, if you have a secondary monitor, it's good to keep those on their secondary monitor. Alright, let's go to UV by right clicking, go to UV, highlight a bunch of UVs, and try to hit delete on the keyboard. Notice it will not work. So over here on polygons, we can delete UVs only in the menu. Now, if an object has no UVs and it has a texture applied to it, let's say I middle mouse button click and drag this to here and go to color. This object now has a texture applied to it, but it's not showing up. It's white. White means it has no UVs. Another color that confuses students quite bad is this one. Let's delete Lambert 3. Notice the object is now green. So green means it's lost its material. So this object has no material in UVs. Basically, it's screwed. Let's go in and make UVs for it. Let's go to create UVs, and we'll understand a cube very easily by going to automatic mapping. Now, these are used in conjunction with each other. There's no set thing that you do every time. If it's an organic object, we might be using a combination of planar mapping and automatic mapping. For sometimes we use automatic mapping, but we don't use just one. If I go to automatic mapping, it's going to give me a cube with a lot of seams. These UV shells need to be attached in some manner. Seams give away texture flaws. So we want to make sure that we have the lowest amount of seams possible. For right now, if I go to object mode and I go to display polygons, texture border edges, and then go to shading wireframe unshaded, every edge is separated. So that's bad. The T formation was a really good idea because it laid out the box and had the lowest amount of seams possible without collapsing in on itself. How do we know what's collapsing in on itself? Well, here's this button right here. Click it, and let's grab the UV shell and click and drag it over the top of another one. Okay, the dark blue represents bad. Light blue is good. So if you have this show up, these two shells over the top of each other will not be good when it comes down to texturing. Another color that you see very commonly is this, red. Red just means an inverted shell. Inverted shells should be converted over to blue shells by just flipping them. And that's probably the first thing you should do in most cases, is get all your shells facing the right way 2D wise. Okay. Now, if we wanted to move and sew these together, we would just have to think about the edges. So let's grab an edge. Notice I can't grab an edge. Anytime you're in this tool, you have to go first over to the selection tool to go back to the UV texture editor tool, and then right click edge, and now I can select edge. So that's the only downfall about this tool, is you have to go over here to unselect it or hit W. So let's grab an edge and use the move and sew command. Whoa, flipped way over here. Well, where we start doesn't really matter. Let's make that T formation. Move and sew, move and sew, move and sew, and move and sew. There we go. Perfect. Now, I want this on the 0 to 1. Well, I could go like this, highlight the UVs, all of them, click in the center, and uniformly scale them, W on the keyboard, to move them into position as best I can. But sometimes we can use Maya to lay them out. Go to Polygons, go to Layout. I have to go to the square box for a second because I have different settings. I'm going to reset my settings to what you have and hit Apply. Notice it lays it out for you perfectly on the UVs, 0 to 1 scale, but it's still green. Well, remember, it doesn't have a material, so the first thing we have to do is assign it a material. In this case, what? A new Lambert. Right click, rename it, learn UVs, and I can middle mouse button click and drag it over to the object. Okay, that's good, but where's the texture? Well, the texture needs to be attached to the material, so middle mouse button click and drag that to the ball and go to color. Look familiar? Let's go to object, highlight it, and you'll see now the texture appearing. Now, a lot of cases students see this and they get confused because they have 5 on the keyboard instead of 6. So if you don't see your texture, it's because you have 5 on instead of 6. Notice that there's these where you can switch between texture, wireframe, and all the others. That is 4, 5, and 6 on your keyboard. Not the number pad either. So, now you've successfully made UVs. Trust me when I say you should probably do that again. Alright? Then join me in the next video.